Welcome back to another edition of the Simicast. It's been a while. I'm finally getting off my lazy ass and making one of these. So we're going to have some Matthew Thomas talk, and the majority of this pod will, of course, be about Alabama. The game is now 2 days away. I should have been on here earlier doing stuff. I just didn't. So my apologies for those of you that, actually, we're looking to hear some more pods in the off season. Sorry. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. Fuck it. Let's just get right into it. The Matthew Thomas situation. Finally, we have some closure. But before I get into the closure, let's talk about the fucking saga. In case for some reason you clicked on this video and you don't know who Matthew Thomas is, he's the starting weak side linebacker. And for the past 2 weeks, he hasn't been at practice. And initially, Jimbo came out and he's like, well, Thomas he's dealing with an illness, and Vickers was sick too, and hell, even our secretary was a little sick, And as the days went on, people, especially the beat reporters, were like, "Yeah, is this guy really sick? He's been out a few days now. We haven't seen him at practice. This is a guy that his sophomore year he missed half of it because he got popped for weed in the national title game. He was a freshman then." During the national title game. 2015, he was academically ineligible. So people, it was a red flag. It was a red flag when Matthew Thomas was in practice. So people assumed for the longest that he's probably dealing with some grade issues. That's probably what's going on here. But Jimbo kind of strung out for a while the old he's sick thing, and then finally, a few days back, he finally, or maybe a week ago, he finally goes, well, he's dealing with, quote, other issues. But all the while in these past 2 weeks, he said he, expects Thomas back. This past Monday, he was quoted as saying he should be back very, 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 very soon. And then yesterday morning, there was an ESPN article where Jimbo kind of changed his tune. He was no longer saying, I expect him back. He should be back. It was, he's kind of iffy to play versus Bama. And so when I saw that, I initially thought, well, he's gone. Thomas is gone. But then in the evening around 5 or 6 p.m. last night, the news breaks on Tomahawk Nation and on Twitter that, hey, Thomas is back. He's been cleared. He's been fucking cleared. And I'm glad that's settled because it was ridiculous, the amount of updates on Thomas and people asking questions. I mean, I was curious to what was going on, but it was just every day. And as much as Matthew Thomas is needed and his absence would have been felt, okay, the reporters reporting on him as if he was like Derwin James or like an All-American. I like Matthew Thomas. He has the highest upside of any of the linebackers on the roster. He's one of the best linebackers in the conference. Super athletic kid. But holy shit, it's like, did Matthew Thomas fart today? It's just like, enough's enough. We'll find out soon enough. I mean, at this point, as of yesterday, before the news dropped, we're just a few days away. We're going to find out. Like, I don't need to know that badly. I'll find out soon enough. And the beat reporters were in a fucking tizzy because FSU had a press conference scheduled, and at the last minute they backed out. And I agree that that's kind of amateurish, kind of bush league, as some people said on Twitter. But at the same time, I don't care if Jimbo closes practices, and the beat reporters, you guys can figure out something else to write about. God forbid, you can write more about the game. I'm sure you guys could figure out some other angle to write about the game and not, have your content dependent upon Matthew Thomas's, eligibility or not. But a lot of beat reporters had their panties in a bunch. So glad that's over, because that was just kind of obnoxious reading that shit. Like, beat reporters whining because they had to wait and they were hung out to dry. And I agree, that was, like I said, that wasn't exactly a class move by FSU. But at the same time, it's like, who gives a shit? We're days away. We're going to find out anyways. You're still going to go on covering the Knowles. Everything will be all right. So Matthew Thomas is back. So now I feel like you can put that behind us, and it's strictly the game now. I mean, hell, 2 days away. It better be, right? Okay, so let's talk about Bama. I'm going to talk about offense versus defense and vice versa, and maybe a little special teams talk. And before I go any further, any of my analysis is not like extremely detailed, or I'm not furthermore, I'm not a big X's and O's guy. I can barely tell you the difference between an A and a B gap. So the preview or what have you, the Alabama talk, will kind of be just my general thoughts that I've gleaned from all the Knoll podcasts I've listened to, all the articles I've read on all the Knoll websites, and I encourage you to do the same. If you haven't been on Knowles 24/7 or Tomahawk Nation or War Chant, or listen to the pods like the Knollcast, Unconquered podcast by Doc Staples, who's a coach, and he's really well spoken when it comes to the on-field X's and O stuff. Far more than I could ever dream of. And what's another one? Wake Up War Chant is decent on actually on YouTube is where I listen to it. But I think you can find it on Podbean. Either way, it's neither here nor there. If you've clicked on my channel and it's the first time doing so, I'm more of just a fan, like most anyone else, but one that at least tries to stay as informed as possible when it comes to Florida State. So let's dig right in, and we can't start anywhere else with this game except FSU's offensive line. We got to start there. In case you're living under a rock, the FSU's line from left to right will be Derek Kelly, Landon Dickerson, Eberle at center, Minshew at right guard, and Leonard at right tackle. And when you hear all those names, at least for me, the first thing I thought was, well, shit, there's not a ton of certainty at any of those positions. If you think about it, I mean, let's go through it. Kelly played injured last year, didn't play well. He played guard. I remember, like, specifically the Ole Miss game, him like stepping on Johnson's feet and just getting beat. But apparently he was dealing with a lot of injuries, and so I'll give him a pass. But then you got to go back to like 2015 where you last saw him play and play well. And will he be able to play left tackle? I don't think he's ever played left tackle at FSU. So, I mean, that's a question mark right there. If the guy simply never played left tackle at FSU. And then, you go to Dickerson. I think he's probably maybe the least questionable guy, assuming his knee is healthy. He had off-season ACL surgery. If that is truly 100%, and all reports I read say it is, then he should be a mauler. He should be like a dominant guy. I'm not too worried about Dickerson, to be honest, but there's still the question, like, will he remain healthy? Is that knee going to hold up? But he's, 6'5", 320. I think at least one recruiting service had him as a 5-star. Played a little last year, of course. A little inconsistent, as you'd expect a freshman to be, but the upside and the physicality he brings and his intensity he brings is something that any Knoll fan can appreciate. The guy is just 100 miles an hour all the time. Like, he's not just looking to engage a defender and kind of hold him. No, he's looking to drive him into the ground. I remember watching his highlights when he was a recruit, and it was just like putting guys out of bounds, putting guys like into the ground, like playing to like the echo of the whistle, like, back in the day. Knoll's defenders were claiming they were doing that when they were hitting Warfel late. The guy is just looks to be like he could be a beast. Of course, at center, Eberle, who like received just all kinds of disdain from the fan base, including myself at different points last year. Lord knows I was on here during the season, just ranting and raving on how this motherfucker looked like he was on roller skates sometimes in pass protection. And I've heard all the talking heads and the analysts say, hey, he wasn't as bad as the fan base made it out to be. Okay, that's fine. I will concede that. But is he at the caliber of center I expect at Florida State? No, not at all. Of course, maybe my expectations are wrong. Maybe I should expect inconsistent play, considering Trickett's recent track record. Trickett's had some good years, some good O-line play. But lately here, the last few years, it's seemingly every other season, you're questioning how's the O-line going to hold up? How's it going to hold up? And so, yeah, I'm tired of questioning that. And I know in general, Trickett's offensive line play has been good because you can't win the amount of games FSU's won while he's been there with having just downright shitty offensive line play every year. But can you not be inconsistent? And that's the question with Eberle. Can he be more consistent in pass pro? And Andy Staples from Sports Illustrated put an article out about Eberle recovering from his offseason hip surgery. And after I read that, I'm going to tell you the truth. I felt like a huge asshole for dogging Eberle all year. Like, I really did. I'm not going to read the article, but I'll try and sum it up best I can. I think his bones that went into the hip sockets, they were too long, if I recall, and so they had to like shave the length off of them so they can rotate normally without bringing him any pain. And the pain was so bad that what helped him get through it was to tell himself, well, at least I'm not dying. And so the pain had to be pretty bad if that's how he felt. Like, good Lord. So you would figure with the off-season surgery that he's feeling healthier, and by all reports, he is. Maybe not 100%, but just night and day from last year. He's able to stay in the weight room more. He's more flexible, which, flexibility is kind of important if you're a fucking center. Last year, the article stated that he got down to 285 by the end of the season simply because he couldn't stay in the weight room because it's too painful to lift all the time. He's up to, I think, 305, or at least that's what he's listed as. I can live with that from your center. 6'4", 305. I'm cool with that. So there is a sliver of optimism that he will be better than last year, just based on health and his newfound size and strength. But again, it's no guarantee, so still a question. Then you go to right guard, Minshew. I think if you've watched FSU last year or whenever he's played, you like how physical he is. The guy is, first of all, huge. I think he's 330 plus, 6'5", 6'6", maybe. Just a big man. Probably better at run blocking at this point. But when he gets hold of someone, it's game over. That guy is going to get engulfed by his ridiculous body. But health has been an issue since he's been at FSU, concussions and whatnot. I think he's a little dinged up this preseason camp, but sounds like he's ready to go. But again, that's another question. And then last but not least, Rick Leonard at right tackle. If you recall, in the spring, they moved him to left tackle. I believe it was the spring. Maybe I might be misremembering here. Maybe it was the beginning of fall camp. Jimbo's like, oh yeah, Leonard's our left tackle. It's like, what? He played right tackle. In case if you clicked on this, you don't know the Leonard's history. He was originally a defensive lineman, moved offensive line last year, was at right tackle, struggled early, played well late versus Florida and Michigan. So when you heard left tackle at the beginning of the camp, I just immediately was not a fan of that. I was like, come on, man. Like, the guy just started coming into his own at right tackle. Why don't you keep him there? He's comfortable. Well, that's where he is now, so I think that's a good sign. He is up to 310-ish, something like that. And he's like 6'7". So, I mean, he's got adequate size, and he's got the athleticism. The question is, has his overall technique and skill, has that improved to the point where he's not going to look lost or embarrassed or confused? So that's another question, too. And going into a game versus a front that Bama has, despite their losses on defense, I mean, that's scary when you have that many questions across O-line. Now, in general, as I went through every guy, in general, like a lot of talking heads, I think in general they will be better than last year. But will they be better game one? I mean, that's hard to say. Not just because it's game one and they haven't had in-game reps and more experience to come together, but of course it's also versus Bama. Now, what are they going to face? I think Bama's front seven lost 3 or 4 guys or something like that. But it's Bama, man. I mean, they had guys that still got plenty of playing time last year. And when you have guys like Deshaun Hand, who's finally a starter, the dude was like the number 1 recruit out of high school a few years back. And so when he's not drunk and passed out in his car, I imagine he's going to play pretty well in this fucking game. Then you have beasts like Payne and Raekwon Davis, who coincidentally was recently shot in the leg. I don't know I think it was maybe a ricochet, I don't think it was a direct gunshot wound. And let me just stop right there. As an FSU fan, I'm clearly aware of the off-field issues FSU's had. And I'm not even talking just like Winston, because people want to, I'm over talking about that. People believe what they want to believe. I'm not even going to go there. So I'm never one to point fingers at other programs. I mean, the last time I cared about off-field issues, I was in middle school. The shit's just childish. And have you ever noticed the fans that scream about off-field issues are typically the fans of teams that aren't performing well as your team, like almost without fail? For instance, the Florida Gators. when Urban was curb stomping FSU, and I've said this many times on this podcast, you hardly heard nary a Florida fan mention FSU's off-field issues. Oh, but now that FSU has the upper hand in the series, winners of the past 4, 6 of the last 7 since Jimbo's been head coach, now you hear about the off-field. Oh, what's going on with so-and-so, so-and-so. But anyway, so Raekwon Davis, the rumor is from the bar owner, because apparently he was shot at a bar parking lot. The rumor is that he shot himself, like he pulled a Plaxico. And yet, it sounds like, 1, the wound isn't serious, and 2, he'll play. And of course, Hand's playing despite his DUI or his non-DUI, whatever the fuck it was. And that's fine. I expected both of those things. But to tie this into FSU, I was like, fuck, one guy can pass out in a car drunk, and Lord knows I've been there, so I'm not going to judge the kid too harshly. And another guy possibly shot a gun in public, and yet both are going to play, but we had to wait 2 weeks for Matthew Thomas's grades to get fixed. Point of the story is, damn, I wish FSU had Alabama's bagmen to help brush the troubles underneath the rug a little better. Not to say FSU has never brushed troubles under the rug. I mean, let's be real. But damn, man, like I was just like, fuck, we're worried about this kid's grades. Meanwhile, they got 2 guys involved in that, and they're suiting up, they're good to go. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. You can expect Bama's front 7 to bring the heat and bring it frequently. I mean, why wouldn't they when you have Kelly at left tackle for the first time in his college career? You're still not sure how good Leonard is in year 2. Is Eberle really, like they know the same questions on that offensive line that I just mentioned. So I expect heat to be brought. And I can't name you all of Bama's front 7. Again, I'm not a huge X's and O's guy. I didn't do as much research as maybe I should have. But I can gloss over it and say, expect it to be good. Hello, it's fucking Bama. They reload. Okay? So that front 7 versus our O-line, yes, it worries me. And here's what the line just needs to do. It doesn't need to be outstanding. It doesn't. Can it be competent? Can it at least, okay, you might get beat physically, but can you at least not have a ton of false start calls? Can the right protection calls be made? Not just by them, but by Francois. So you don't look like idiots out there where guys are just running free through the fucking line like it's a goddamn turnstile and Francois is running for his life. I think they can be at least competent. And if they're competent, A, that'll help the running game, of course, and B, I think, and more importantly, the passing game, and that's where I'm going to go to next, or the wide receivers. Last year, I know I said it on here, and I'm sure you guys have heard Jeff Cameron, the Nolecast, and others mention how Rudolph, Bobo, and Kermit, all nice players in their own right, They made some plays while they were at FSU. They were all fairly good route runners, etc. But the obvious, none of them were over 5'11", and none of them had elite speed or great speed even, except for Whitfield, and Whitfield's 5'8". So for Francois last year, many of his passes to those 3 guys had to be on the money. I mean, because obviously, given their size, their catch radius not too big. This year, of course, you have Tate, Gavin, and Murray. Tate being 6'5", Gavin being 6'3", both 210 plus. Murray's 5'11", but he plays bigger than that. Like you forget he's 5'11" when he's making big catches downfield. So those 3 have way more potential and a bigger catch radius for sure, especially Tate and Gavin. So I think that gives Francois obviously a little more room for error. And then we're talking about the matchup with Bama. Excuse me, I think they lost Humphrey, but surprise, they still got 5 stars in the defensive backfield. Fitzpatrick, Tony Brown, and other talented guys like Avery. I think his name is it Averett or Avery, whatever the fuck it is. Oh, and Diggs. I think Diggs is kind of new to the scene. That might be the guy they pick on quite a bit. But if FSU is going to have a chance to win, they're going to have to make big plays downfield in the vertical passing game, and hopefully this trio of wide receivers can do that, and they definitely have a better chance than the Rudolphs and Whitfields and shit. Because as Doc Staples pointed out on his Unconquered podcast, a lot of people like to lazily analyze Bama's losses under Saban as, well, they lost those games against spread teams. That's the key. It's just you got a spread team, run up tempo, you can beat them. And, of course, that's been a part of some of their losses, but he pointed out, and rightfully so, the bigger commonality or the bigger common theme in Saban's losses while at Bama have been more personnel-based. They're either playing elite QBs or NFL caliber QBs like Watson, Kelly, Manziel, or they're going up against big, tall, physical receivers like Mike Williams in Clemson, Mike Evans, Texas A&M, Alshon Jeffrey, South Carolina, Treadwell and his tall teammates at Ole Miss. And so I thought Staples made a good point. Like, okay, I mean, that's true. Like, pretty much in every loss you look at, that's definitely the common theme there is big, tall receivers making plays downfield. So if the line can give Francois just a modicum of time, just a little bit of time, where he can take his shots, I think this trio has the potential to do that. And if they do, then of course that should loosen up some room for the running game to get going. And I guess I'll move to the running backs now. Jock Patrick is the starter. That's not really been a surprise. It's kind of been known for the past couple weeks. Came into camp in great shape. He's similar to a Bo Scarborough. Not that he's maybe at the talent level of Scarborough. Close. But, 6'3", 230, good speed for his size, quick feet. And finally, last year, he started running the way Jimbo wanted to him, with his pad level lower and, kind of running with some more physicality, which surprised me that he started doing that, yet he barely saw the playing field last year, because there was a guy named Cook, running the rock 20-plus times a game. But that's neither here nor there. I'm excited to see what Jock can offer. All reports out of camp is he's in the best shape that he's been since he's been at FSU. And then backing him up is, of course, the freshman phenom, Cam Akers. I'm sure most of you that clicked on this know who Cam Akers is. He was either the number 1 or number 2 running back in the 2017 class, depending on what recruiting service. And the guy can do it all. He's got the requisite size. Not super tall, but 5'11" is tall enough for a running back. He's 213. If you look at any pictures or videos of him online, the guy's just rocked up as a true freshman. It's ridiculous just how jacked he is. He's got great agility, home run speed, maybe not to the level of Cook, but who is. Can catch the ball out of the backfield, and he's already the second stringer. And Jimbo said, I think yesterday, that, quote, he will play. There is no doubt. He will play. And then beyond that, you got Amir Razul, I think Ryan Green. They were both listed either third or fourth. And if you go in further than that, you got LeBourne, who was a 5-star in last year's class, and Zakondre White, who was a 4-star. So those two plus Akers were 3 top 10 running backs in the 2017 class. And overall, there's basically 6 running backs in those stable. I think at least 2 were consensus 5-stars, and the other 4 were consensus 4-stars. So the running back stable is not bereft of talent by any means. Now, are any one of them Cook? Probably not. I mean, that's a fairly obvious statement. But there's enough talent there to find ways to make hay in the rushing game. And I expect a number of them to get involved in the passing game, because by all reports that you read online, they can all catch the ball well out of the backfield. And I suspect you'll see a number of screens. Jimbo usually has good timing for HB screen, halfback screens. You might even see Akers flexed out. The guy can make linebackers look stupid in space. So I'm really curious to see how he uses all the running backs. I expect at least 3 different ones. I would obviously Jock and Akers. My guess is Razul would probably be the next one to see the field this Saturday. He's the home run hitter, if you never heard of him. He's a 4-star guy like 2 classes ago. Just a burner. I think he ran like a 10.4 100-meter in track in high school or some crap. So I'm excited to see how he uses the running backs. Where do we go to next? I guess I don't want to leave out the tight ends. Izzo obviously back again. I think he's a 4th-year player. So is Saunders. Izzo is solid as they come. He can block. He can get separation and get open from linebackers. He catches most everything that comes his way. I expect him and Saunders to be used, especially Izzo, but I expect both of them to be used quite a bit this year. Maybe not just as far as like catching passes, but the offensive line, who has question marks, you're probably going to see some two tight end sets so they can help out and do the obvious thing, which is chip on defensive ends and whatnot. Maybe be targets closer to the line of scrimmage so they can bail out Francois if no one downfield is open. And if they are running the two tight end sets and you have Tate and Gavin on the field, I mean, that is a big lineup. Okay, let's say they go two tight ends, Tate, Gavin, and a running back, and of course Francois is a formation. I mean, that is a lot of meat with 6'5" and 6'3" at wide receiver, 220-ish. Of course, the tight ends. Like, I expect Jimbo's probably going to use that package a decent amount this season, and probably in this game. Like, play to the strengths of this team, and if this team wants to get physical on occasion, I think it can. Now, I don't think it's wise to try and, like, for lack of a better term, out physical Bama, because that's just not going to happen. Like, Francois is going to have to play a pretty good game for the Noles to win, because typically when Bama does lose, it's because a quarterback beat them, not just in the air with his feet. And speaking of which, Francois will be ran whatever this game. There's no doubt in my mind. And of course, some motherfucker's doing yard work right now. I swear to fucking Christ. Anyway, I hope it's not too loud on here, but I'll keep going. I get Francois not running against like shit teams. I mean, I was opining for him to run like so much last year, and finally down the stretch, Jimbo started doing it more. And I get it. It's a scary proposition when you look at the depth chart, because you got Costantino, JJ, what's a fourth-year guy, I think. Just a lump of fucking shit. I mean, sorry. I mean, no offense, but offense to the kid, I guess. I'm sure he's a great guy. But the guy just strikes you as a dude that's happy to be an FSU football player. Hey, and rightfully so. Like, Google his girlfriend. She's fucking, like, smoking. But that guy's a lump of shit. There might be a chance if Francois goes out for any length of time that you could see one of the true freshmen. And by our reports, that true freshman might be James Blackman, 6'5", 170, so super skinny. But Jimbo keeps raving about his arm talent, his ability to make tough throws, read a defense. Apparently he performed pretty well in the last scrimmage they had. The thought was Hawkman might be the next man up, because he's a coach's son, a little bit bigger than Blackman as far as weight goes, maybe a little bit more polished, but who knows? If Francois goes down, knock on wood, he doesn't, you might see Blackman, but I expect Francois to be ran, I don't know, he's got to be at least 5 to 10 times. And I hope, furthermore, that Francois takes it upon himself to run more, even if it's not a design play. Like, a lot of people in the offseason were talking about Francois' like progression, and a lot of the fan base and talking heads were split. Some think, oh, Francois is who he is, that 58% completion percentage guy. Well, that's who he is. He's just never been accurate, And then there's other guys that, say the opposite, of course. They think, well, that's his first year, going into year 2. You'd like to think he'd be better. And I'm thinking he should. I think that 58%, if he can get that up to, I don't know, say 63%, this team is going to win a lot of games. A lot of games. Because that 5% difference, going by my, I guess prediction, if you will, can keep a lot of drives going. Can turn a 2nd and 10 into a 3rd and 2, because he makes, an accurate throw, an intermediate throw to, someone on the sideline or whatever. Or his ability to make quicker decisions allows him to be more accurate, because he's getting the ball out quicker, and receivers are open, as opposed to, not open, but instead of taking sacks, he's able to get the ball out quicker by being more decisive. So I think his overall game can improve. And by and large, Jimbo quarterbacks, and I guess maybe I'm really only thinking about Ponder here, but Ponder made a huge jump in completion percentage from year 1 starting to year 2. And again, I don't know if Francois can make a huge jump, but if he can get it to like a respectable 63%, which is respectable at the college level, 58%, to be honest, is just plain bad at the college level. And especially for Jimbo offense. I mean, EJ Manuel even completed, 64% or better. But anyway, I think he can improve. And to go along with him making quicker decisions in passing, I think quicker decisions to go ahead and take off. Go ahead and take off on these fuckers with your legs. If you make read 1, read 2, and you can't get to read 3, that's okay. Go ahead and take off, get what you can get. But don't consistently just stand back there and wait. Because the line, it already has some question marks for one, but two, it's not going to be able to hold up all day against a front like Bama. So I mean, that's the bigger that's the bigger overall question of this game. What is FSU's offense going to do against Bama's D? I mean, virtually nobody runs on them, and the question's on the O-line. That's my biggest concern. Can they do enough to win this game? I think they got the potential because they do have the requisite size at receiver, as I mentioned. And Francois, if anything else, he may be inaccurate. Maybe he doesn't improve with the shorter intermediate throws. But unless my memory isn't serving me well, he was pretty damn good at the deep ball last year. So I think that could portend to some success for Bama and keep them honest. Here's hoping that it does. Let's move over to the defense. Try and blow through this a little quicker. If you're living on a rock, this defense should be lights out. I mean, we thought that going to the year last year, and then they shit on themselves the first 4 or 5 games. Granted, they played some great quarterbacks and some good offenses, but still, it was just pathetic, especially by FSU standards. The biggest element to this defense being great is the defensive line. And I'm not saying anything new here. Just the depth of talent is stupid. Your front four, depending on the down, is generally going to be Sweat, Naughty, Christmas, Burns. And that's a sick front four. I mean, Sweat came on at the end of the year, finished with four or five sacks in the last 4 or 5 games. Of course, Burns had 9.5 sacks as a true freshman. Now, he's bulked up a little bit. I think he's up to 230 now from 218 last year. So he still might not be an every down player, but his pass rushing ability and his quickness is unquestioned. It's ridiculous. Naughty and Christmas might be the top defensive tackle duo in the country. If not, they're at least top 5. And then underneath them is where FSU can really make hay because the depth is just so good there. Fred Jones could start, as the Nolecast mentioned. He could start for a bunch of Power 5 teams, and he's a backup. Wally Aime hasn't played a little bit, expects to play a little more this year, was a guy that Bama pursued all the way down to the end of the recruiting cycle a season or 2 ago. Marvin Wilson, I don't know how much play he's going to get in this game, maybe not much. Number 1 defensive tackle in the country this past cycle. Kando, I think he's listed currently maybe as the 3rd stringer, but it wouldn't shock me if he got a couple, passing down reps going against Bama. He could. I mean, he's been impressive in fall camp. There's been video clips of Lawling having him demonstrate a defensive line or defensive end drill, whatever you want to call it. I'm probably forgetting a couple names. I mean, there's other freshmen like Corey Durden and Jalen Parks, who are both big body guys. I know at least one of those guys was a 4-star. Just the depth of talent is really good. They can obviously rotate guys in and out, keep them fresh. Of course, Pugh, he's not technically defensive lineman, but he plays near the line of scrimmage a lot. He can chip in with pass rushing, and he got a handful of sacks last year. So up front is where FSU is just really, in my opinion, what makes them, not my opinion, a lot of people's opinion, what makes them a national title contender. You move back to the linebackers. Now I can confidently talk about them since MT6 is back. Most of the time it's going to be him and Hoskins on the field. Hoskins isn't anything special. He's all right. Early in the season, both he and Thomas just looked lost at times, like didn't know when to trigger downfield. Didn't seem to shed blocks as much as you would hope. But towards the end of the year, especially Matthew Thomas, as you recall, he turned it on. So him getting back, him returning is definitely key. I think FSU could win the game if he was ruled ineligible, but the fact he's back is very nice because he is probably, at least maybe he'll share this duty with Derwin. But I suspect on a decent amount of downs, he's going to be keeping an eye on Hurts so he doesn't take off and kill them. And I guess I should mention how the front versus Bama's O-line. I think Bama's either returning 3 or 4 guys, and 1 or maybe just 2 were rated less than a 4-star. So surprise, surprise, Bama's got a talented front, and I think they return, God, it's upwards of 30 to 40 starts. If memory serves, sorry, I didn't do as much research maybe as I should have. Fuck me. But so just assume that the line play is probably going to be pretty good, but they're going to be tested. I mean, FSU's front is just, it's no joke. Like, they should give them at least a little bit of trouble. I guess we can move outside. Like, what are the receivers going to do at defensive backfield? I mean, number 1, Derwin's back. That's huge. He's literally everywhere on the field. Of course, you got McFadden. Levante Taylor won the corner position opposite of McFadden. Taylor, of course, was number 1 cornerback out of high school 2 cycles ago. Trey Marshall, one of the top safeties in the ACC, is suspended the first half because that stupid fucking rule where he got ejected in the second half of the Orange Bowl. So he's got to miss the first half of this game. But Kyle Myers and maybe some others will step in. In general, though, the defensive backfield is loaded. It's one of the best secondaries in the country. But one thing they do need to improve on, and I think the Nolecast mentioned this, last year, runs outside the tackles, FSU was atrocious in that defensive categories, like keeping outside runs like to a minimum, just bad, like next to last or some shit. So McFadden, Taylor, and Derwin's gonna they need to be physical, and of course Derwin can help turn that stat around because they need to be wary of, obviously, not just the running backs, but Hurts taking off outside the pocket. They need to be able to get off a block and be physical and come up and keep those runs to a minimum. As far as going up against Bama's receivers, Ridley is their number 1 dude. I think their 2 and 3 guys are fairly, I think, are new. I think they lost a couple experienced guys, or at least one. I know Judy's probably in the mix. He's a top receiver out of high school. You can pretty much say that about any Bama player. A top guy at this position, top guy at that. So we'll see how he goes up against the defensive backfield. I think McFadden will likely be on Ridley in a lot of formations, and which makes me feel good because McFadden's 6'2", like 200 plus. Like, hopefully he can be a little more physical, as I mentioned, not just in run support, but jam this asshole. I'm hoping he can. He has the size to do it. And I feel like I'm forgetting people. I think Robert Foster is a receiver for them. He's an older guy. I think a 5th-year senior. I mean, there's just, Bama's got talent at receiver, obviously, because they have it everywhere. But I like the way they match up with the defensive backfield, especially with Derwin in the fold. But a lot of that success is going to depend on, can the rush get there, or will they have to blitz to get it there? If they blitz, then there could be some trouble because Ridley and Judy are very talented. But I think, without getting extremely detailed, because again, I'm not a big X's and O's guys. I can barely tell you the difference between an A gap and a B gap. The defense should hold their own against Bama. And by hold their own, keep Bama in the 20s. Keep Bama in the 20s, and FSU's got a shot. All right, I may be missing something, but let's just move on to special teams. Don't know a ton about Bama. I know their punter is excellent, like extremely good, with his net punting average, like ridiculously so. The kicker, I think they're going by kicker by committee right now. Like one guy handles the 40 and under, one guy handles the longer field goals. But in general, the special teams units are good. And then you flip over to FSU. That's still a question. Special teams. Aguayo was terrible on kicks that were more than 40 yards. Logan Tyler was inconsistent, and that's me being nice. Like, special teams are going to matter a ton in a game like this. Two highly talented teams that should be in a competitive game. Special teams are going to be huge. Like, Tyler can't be shanking punts. He's going to have to flip the field on occasion. and give that FSU defense to show how good they are, not kick one 20 yards out of bounds and give Bama the ball at the 50-yard line. And Guaya's gonna have to be relied upon. Hey, can you make a 45-yarder, man? There was a clip a couple weeks ago. It was pretty funny. Jimbo in camp just taking it to Ricky. Ricky had kicked, and you couldn't see the kick, but I'm assuming he missed because Jimbo goes, "You're gonna make me go for 2 every time, aren't you? We're never gonna kick field goals." And to be honest with you, I'm not totally opposed to that. Jimbo, he has some flaws, and one of them is fourth down math. And so he's going to be put to the test at least a couple times in this game where he's like, well, I can either go for a 45-yard field goal or I can go for 4th and short if it's 4th and short. But special teams will be huge. The punt returning has just been ass the last couple years. Like, I don't even know what the average is, but it's horrible. I forgot which podcast I listened to, but the punt coverage was ranked in the hundreds. Like, they were ranked high as far as punt returns allowed, like guys actually not fair catching and returning it. But when the ball was actually returned, FSU was awful. Like, I'm telling you, like, ranked in the hundreds. I can't remember what podcast said it or where I read it maybe. That can't happen anymore at FSU. They have ridiculous athletes. So I'm crossing my fingers as special teams sews up, some of the holes they've had recently. By the way, Derwin and Gavin will return the kicks. I know some people feel a little trepidatious about that. Having the best player on the team return kicks in Derwin and Gavin, who's needs to have a breakout year at receiver. But I'm fine with using the best players you have at those positions. I'm perfectly fine. Like, I'm envisioning now Gavin's big ass catching the ball and Derwin lead blocking and just blowing someone out the fucking frame, and Gavin taking off and probably bulldozing a guy himself and having better returns than FSU's had recently. And then a punt returner, it'll be at McFadden, which again, a little scary. Second best defensive back on the team. But this is nothing new. I mean, there's been great players return punts and kicks at FSU many times. It's football. These guys could get hurt at any time. I'm fine. Clearly, Jimbo's trying to improve those areas because he sees the writing on the wall. Those areas sucked. I'm putting my best players. I'm putting guys that when they have the ball in their hand, they can do some things. And so I like it. And special teams are going to be huge. In general, if you're checking the box for each unit, offense, defense, special teams, you got to give Bama the special teams check mark. Defense, I'm going to give FSU the slight check mark just because although Bama reloads, there's still some question marks, like with the new guys. Game 1, the talent's obviously there for them, but will they be like in sync? Know all the checks and audibles, and so I'm going to give FSU the check mark in defense, defensive comparison, and then offense. I guess I'll give it to Bama, just because it comes down to the O-line. And I guess to wrap this up, who am I going to pick to win? Again, I'm worried about their defense versus our line. I like our defense holding them at bay against their offense. But I give Bama the special. Basically 2 out of 3 matchups are probably going to Bama. So I'm picking them. It's Bama. They're a 7-point favorite for a reason. But you know what? I'm a fucking homer, so I'm not going that way. I'm going with FSU with the upset. The defense just does enough to keep them in the 20s. Francois is able to get just at least enough time, a competent play from the FSU line where he can take some shots downfield, and I think that stable of running backs will also do just enough. And FSU wins a fucking squeaker, 27-24. And if I'm wrong, hey, trolls, you're welcome. Come to the comment section, call me an idiot, but I'm telling you right now, as much as my head wants to say, I'm just going to go with the conservative fling and pick Bama. Well, no, I'm not, because I generally think FSU can win. This isn't Bama versus Iowa or some shit. This is Florida State. They have the talent to be on the same field as Bama. Now, did they have the same amount of talent player 1 through 85? No, of course not. Nobody does. But in one game, 85 guys aren't playing. So I'm going to be the homer and take FSU to win this 27-24, as I said. And if I'm wrong, fuck it. I don't care. I was leaning towards going Bama with my pick in this pod. But you know what? Fuck it, you know. I'm conservative a lot of the times in my picks. I'm not being. So go Noles. Roll Tribe roll. Fuck the Tide. It should be a great game, regardless who does indeed win. It should be a great game. But I'm going Noles. If I'm wrong, I'll see you guys on here, sometime next week. Until then, if you're a first-time listener, thank you for listening. Feel free to subscribe. And for those of you that have been waiting for me to make more videos, again, I hope this will now be a regular thing now the season started. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for listening. And remember, when in doubt, chop. I'm out.